You know, there are many parks throughout the country that have old trains displayed for people to admire. But the McCormick Railroad Park in Scottsdale, Arizona, has made trains an important part of the park itself. Not only are there trains on display, but also model trains and live steam engines in several different gauges.
The park was organized about 20 years ago, and it started with a gift from my mother and stepfather, Mr. and Ms. Fowler McCormick, who wanted to create a recreational type facility with a lot of history and around the railroad theme. My mother and stepfather conveyed the land to the city of Scottsdale because they were very much interested in family-oriented activities that kept families together by way of recreation, and in the urban environment this is really very necessary today. I attribute to the success of this park to a combination of recreation, first-class railroad operation, and a focal point of history. Our best estimate is about 500,000 people a year pass through this facility, which is one of the most popular and the most used in the city of Scottsdale. The Paradise and Pacific Railroad equipment is something that I constructed over a period of about 40 years, and it is 5/12 scale of the Colorado narrow gauges, which at that time were on the list for abandonment and scrapping. And 5/12 or 15-inch gauge is the smallest scale railroad that you can have that gives the same feel as the full-size railroad in its ride, in its environment, and the whole aspect of railroading. And the size of the cars and the seats are 40 inches across, which permits two adults to sit side by side. A lot of people today will never have an opportunity to ride on a railroad train or on any of the old freight equipment. And so it's very realistic, but in a scale that will fit in a 30-acre facility such as this. We have 3 steam locomotives and 2 diesel-type locomotives, which are propelled with gasoline engines, and a series of cars for carrying passengers and cattle cars for small children, plus all of the work equipment and shop facilities necessary to keep this equipment operating. We have a complete assortment of everything in the model railroading field: N gauge, HO, tin plate, live steam in 3 different gauges, as well as LGB. So we feel that we have a fine cross-section of all types of railroading in the hobby, plus the historical aspects of railroading in our museum. We have quite a historic assortment of railroad equipment here. We have the Magma locomotive, which was one of the first locomotives built for railroads in Arizona. We have a baggage car, which was one of 2 Pullman diners converted to this use during World War II. And we have the Roland Amundsen, which was one of the 3 cars used by the presidents in their tours around the country, and used extensively by President Eisenhower in his 1952 Whistle-Top tour. It was also the site of the signing of the North America Mutual Defense Pact in 1941 by President Roosevelt and Prime Minister Mackenzie King in Ogdensburg, New York. The Peoria Depot, of course, came from Peoria, Arizona, and was up the line from Phoenix, next stop beyond Glendale on the Peavine, which is the Santa Fe's branch into Phoenix. And this depot was built, as all of the depots were on the Santa Fe, in about the 1880s, and was moved intact to the park. And when we moved it, we found all of the shipping records of goods that had been received and shipped in the late 1800s in the attic of the depot, which we do have on hand here at the park. One of the interesting features at the park are the original buildings of the McCormick Ranch headquarters that are here, which are some of the oldest farm buildings in the city of Scottsdale. And these have been preserved and do house the model railroad groups that we have here. And we have a signaling system that was given to us by the SP that has upper and lower quadrants on the semaphores. And there are just a whole series of things that over the years we have been given to display that are items of considerable historic interest to anybody interested in the railroading hobby. The Maricopa Live steamers have a series of locomotives and cars which were built by the individual members here at the park, and they have their own trackage which winds through the desert arboretum. These locomotives represent 3,000 to 5,000 hours worth of work by the individual members.
Our club is about 20 years old. In fact, we're celebrating that event this year. We're interested in preserving, in a model form, steam locomotives. Incidentally, we let some diesels run on our track, but we just barely tolerate them. Our club has about 100 members. Among those members, we've got probably 25 privately owned steam engines, some of which you have seen or will see today, and about half a dozen diesels. We come out and we have a lot of fun with our hobby. The hobby involves both the challenge of building these things. Some people buy them, most of us build them. And it also involves giving free rides to the kids out here on weekends, kids of all ages, that is.
We have no end of projects, and of course, one of the problems is getting them funded, and all of our projects here have been funded by a joint donor and public appropriation process. So the city of Scottsdale has financial inputs, and so we have financial inputs from our donor source. We have a tunnel lined up for the 5/12 system. We would like to build a new building for the display of our museum items. We have a 40-foot boxcar due here to add to the full-size railroad display. And we have a whole series of projects that are unfunded, which we would like to accomplish over the next 5 years.